Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Good evening and welcome to another installment of Three Devs and a Maybe. I am one of your hosts, Fraser, and I'm here today with Ed Mann, as usual.
Hello.
And Lewis Keynes.
Good evening.
And naked Michael Budd.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Very good, sir. Very good. Yeah, the naked thing, I suppose. Just check out the Twitter feed. Check out the Twitter feed, and it all make sense.
Or not.
Especially
you don't have
for you
to.
ladies, you'll like that.
And retweet it. If you like it, retweet it. Even if you don't like it, retweet it. Make up new Twitter accounts just to retweet that.
It needs to do the rounds,
It
basically.
definitely does.
I need to apologise for what I'm wearing as well. I'm wearing a very questionable T-shirt in that picture.
I suppose at least you're wearing some T-shirt.
At least you have the decency to put some clothes on, though, Lewis, unlike another podcast.
Oh dear, brilliant.
Well, I normally try and get dressed at least 8 o'clock in the evening if I can. So I've been dressed for a while now. So
It takes an hour to get ready.
it does.
Yeah, bear this in mind, Mickey. Bear this in mind.
Starting from my left, because Ed, you're well, not even from my left. Starting with you, Ed, because you're furthest left on my Skype window. How was your week?
Very good, sir. Very good. Yeah. The weather being weird. I know that's not interesting at all, but I just looked outside and it's a bit weird. Anyway,
And we're British, and that's what
and that's what we talk about all the time to everyone. But anyway, no. Other than that, like tech related, posted a couple of blog posts. Finally, did the code cutter, guys. Yeah, I'm looking at all you guys.
I saw you did a blog post with the solution to all of them, though.
Yeah,
so,
I kind of did a roundup of reverse the string. I'm kind of like
that was good.
Yeah, kind of. Do that, and then obviously normal work stuff. Not really interesting going on there, but really, actually, it's been working up notes and stuff for this episode, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute because that's what this episode's about. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, perfect. Lewis, how about you?
Not too bad. Usual week, really. It's gone a bit quieter at work, but busy, thick and fast with all my freelance stuff at the moment. So yeah. Haven't really got masses to report. It's been
fair enough. So how many freelance projects are you working on right now?
2. Well, one actively. The other one is through the design period. Going through the design period at the moment. So I'm waiting on that. Basically, it gets split into 2 things where you advertise the design thing to the designers, and they all submit you a couple of designs to look at, and you pick the best one.
Right. Yep.
And then after that 7-day period, you then the winning designer then does the rest of it, and there's another consultation period there. So I'm doing that in the other one. I've got the finished design for one, which I'm now building.
Are they good results?
Yeah, I'm very happy with them. It's mad. The second one that I'm doing now is for a teaching consultancy website. We got I think 33 designs in total.
Wow, 33
to choose from. Yeah, she didn't know where to start. She was going through them all.
What do they give you then? Do they just give you the initial front page, kind of what styling's going to look like?
Just get JPEGs, really. JPEGs and screenshot kind of thing.
Pixelated JPEGs, yeah?
Kind of.
Nice pixelated, It's like, there's going to be a couple of greens there, That's pretty cool, man.
But, and then you basically, you pick out which one you like from there, pick the best concept, and then it gets developed from there. So it's a good process, and you get so much choice, and the quality is really good.
So what's the turnaround like on that? When you post something and then actually get feedback on it, is it almost instantaneous?
It is pretty quick. From when you post the brief to your first response, both times within 6 or 7 hours.
That's insane. Phenomenal. Are they just waiting? I suppose they're just waiting there to kind of chuck a design together for you.
Pretty much.
Wow.
And where are they all based? Are they based in India, or are they based in the UK, or what kind of people?
I think certainly the majority of the ones that have contacted me have been from India way. I think.
Okay.
I don't know actually. You can't really see a lot from the people that design. You can kind of click on their profile, and sometimes it says where they're from, and other times it doesn't. But it's cool. You can actually look at some of the stuff they've done, and through the both projects, I've had a total of about nearly 50 designs to look at, and none of them have been bad.
That is phenomenal.
Any of them would have been really good designs to roll with for a website. So
Or hold on to them then, and then you
exactly.
you can
Just
roll them out.
cut things out, Photoshop. Can you just send me this in a bigger res? Maybe without the watermarkings on.
You've got bad eyesight today. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, got
exactly.
I don't need these watermarkings. I really just take them off so I can see the full design.
I do have an announcement to make, actually.
Do you?
I've decided to bite the bullet. Funny enough, talking about this, I've actually hired one of the guys to design my website.
Have you really? Nice.
That is finally being designed now, and thankfully, once that's done, I'll actually have the kick up the backside to go ahead and actually make my own website and get it launched, because it seems a bit ludicrous that I don't really have one. I have a Twitter feed, and that's pretty much
Is this the blog, or is this the actual official lkainswebdeveloper.co.uk?
Yeah, this is the whole proper shebang. Yeah, they're designing me a nice blog and everything for it, so I'll get that put together. I look forward to launching that.
Have you got any designs? Have you got anything you can send us, like, off air and stuff? Or
this is literally off the cuff from about lunchtime today. So I'm expecting.
I'm looking forward.
I'm going to take this silly hat off now because I look stupid.
And the listeners would never know.
Yeah, exactly. But he said he'll be sending me some design samples towards the end of the week. Oh, and he's doing me a logo as well. So
that's nice.
A high-res logo, which will be good. So yeah, I look forward to the process that will be coming with that.
Make sure he sends it in bitmap, BMP format, the best.
Okay.
No, don't. It's like ridiculously big, like a couple of gigabyte per.
Is it?
I used to save everything in it. I don't know why.
I think he's sending me it in a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation or something.
That'd be okay.
Really?
Yeah.
PPT. Just copy and paste it out of there. Is he going to be like the fat opera man with the thing in front of him doing that?
Hopefully. I have asked that he uses as much clip art as he can.
And design, Comic Sans. It's available everywhere,
awesome.
So you might as well go with it.
100%. So how about your golf? You played any golf, or has it just been straight up working this week?
I haven't, actually. Well, we had a weekend, and we decided to have a weekend of saving money this weekend because we've got so much. We've got quite a lot coming up, so just stayed in, and the weather was pants, wasn't it? So no, I didn't get out on the golf course at all. But I live in hope. Maybe this weekend, we'll see.
Fair play. And how about you, Michael? You had sorry, go on. No, go on.
I was going to say, is this your final one this week?
No, I've got one because I fly next Thursday, so I can do Wednesday night and then up the following morning to jet off. But yeah,
holy moly!
So I'll be back next week.
Nice,
that's amazing. Yeah,
it's a bit scary. Anyway, Michael, how was your week?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Away from the code, had a nice weekend away in sunny Norfolk.
Camping or
always no, we're staying in a little kind of.
I just got
that. Boom. Little holiday home, just overlooking a lake, and had like a little hot tub in the back. So I was there with
considering not 5 minutes ago we saw you with your top up.
And that's the listeners is what you're missing on Twitter.
It was a liberating weekend,
Well, 4 of our friends, Goldfish Bowl, car keys, need I say more. But
is there a reason why we don't see your video at the moment? I'm just wondering.
Oh, I don't know. Am I off video?
Yeah, I'm looking at. Either it's your video or the worst game of pool ever.
I put my top back on. I just thought you didn't want to see it now, but it's not the same, is it?
There we are.
But yeah, I took my bottle of whiskey that Justin bought me.
Oh yeah,
Glenfiddich.
Yes, because I've never really been into whiskey, and I thought it's like
that? Never heard of
some clown calls himself a designer.
Glenfiddich.
Oh, we talking about Justin.
You mean Mickey? That's on your mind.
It's right. He never listens to it anyway. But
he does. He's on holiday now though, so he won't hear this.
Is he?
Yeah.
Awesome.
What a better day.
He's not
I thought it was like beer, no one likes beer when you first start drinking it. You've got to get through that barrier. Well, I mean, like when you're like 12 or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I drank it, and I wasn't sure at first. Then I tried it with a little bit of water, which was really good, and then kind of got back down to neat. And now I love whiskey.
It's awesome.
So, yeah.
Why are you putting water with whiskey?
Well, I think some people do, don't they?
Yeah, it's meant to bring the flavour out more, isn't it, I think?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. It takes away a bit of the edge. But, neat is good. But, that's my...
Neat whiskey.
Yeah. In the code, or back to the code, what have I got to say? Well, I won't say too much, because I use that library that Ed's sent us about the UTF-8 encoding, but he's going to talk about later. I did read a bit of .NET magazine. I've got 2 that I just hadn't read, and I was just trying to catch up on. And you know how like with like was it .NET Magazine or Web Designer Mag? Can't remember, one of the two. But there was a good bit at the back of it. Don't know if you guys read it, but I can't remember the guy's name. But he was talking about frameworks, like all topics that he focused on. But he was talking about he doesn't really like Coding Night or Laravel. He finds them too heavy.
Yeah,
and he was basically he was plugging Falcon framework.
I had a look at that after your link. I know I had a look at some of the code. It looks kind of quite like the look of it, if I'm being honest.
I've got to be honest, I haven't had a chance to try it, but it did look quite nice. But basically, this guy was talking about like optimizing performance on Apache. He did talk a little bit about Nginx, but he was talking mainly about Apache, and he was all these tools you can download to measure like the time of like page loads and stuff like that. And some of the results he gets from like using these frameworks versus Vulkan are really impressive. And then he starts talking about stuff that's way over my head, like talks about caching functions and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually quite impressive. I mean, I guess you wouldn't really need it until you're talking like you're getting like thousands of hits a day or whatever. But I guess his argument is that you should always plan for that. Even if you just launch in michaelbudd.org and you get like 10 hits a day, you should still be planning for 50,000.
That many?
See, is that? Do you agree with
more
that?
than me?
Do you agree with planning? Do you agree with planning, like for that kind of worst case, even if it's just a simple website? I don't know if that's.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you don't.
Really?
Well, if you insure your house, do you insure it for a
I know. I
golf ball
suppose I'm just thinking,
or
like,
do you insure it for a hurricane?
I suppose I would like to. I kind of think how much stuff. I mean, you can over-engineer on something, can't you? Really, I think getting it out there, and it's actually a kind of a seal of like approval of like, yes, this is a good product. If you can, if it fails, it's like, you know, it's like the whole Twitter thing. You know, they use Ruby on Rails and stuff, and then it all crashed down. And that's like, well, yes, because we've beaten Ruby, you know, we can't use that anymore. We need to go step up and use, you know, other languages or, you know, do more optimization and stuff.
Classic ASP.
Like classic ASP, absolutely.
I don't know if I'd agree with that phrase, over-engineering. How can you say that to BMW or Mercedes about their cars?
Well, over-engineering, like, the time to, like...
oh, no, he didn't.
The time, like, you know, it's like... So if I'm, like, a developer now, and I'm, like, going to... So it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to write in PHP. I should write in C, because it's better language, like, for...
no, yeah, I see what you see. I see what you're saying, actually. But, yeah, there's a factor of time involved with anything, isn't there? So you can't... You know, yeah, I see what you're saying, but... I love that whole kind of tuning stuff and trying to reduce lines of code.
Dennis
is in the way. Oh no, I agree with that. I do definitely.
But anyway, I've not used it, so I'm doing my usual like plugging something. I've not used it, but I will at some point, like in the summer, probably have a go at playing with Vulkan.
Because it is a C module, isn't it? It's a C module, and then it's a but you write in PHP still, which is cool.
Yeah,
and it just goes. See, that's quite cool. Though, obviously, looking at the source would be a bit of a pain because you're like, yeah, then I need to know C to...
Yeah, but he talks about hip-hop as well. And, obviously, on Hack as well, he talks about that. But basically, it's a really good article. Oh, we should ban this video thing. But yeah, it's a really good article for anyone who wants to read it. Anyone who's interested in, like, optimizing your page loading and stuff like that.
That's cool.
But... the function caching thing I know nothing about. So
what's that then? Like,
it was just saying, unless I completely misread this, it's saying like if you've got functions that you use a lot, you can actually cache the functions themselves.
Oh, like the opcodes for it, or
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, actually, in 5.5 it does. It's quite cool because now they do it already, don't they? It's got like the Zen.dot cache, so you can just. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it was talking about. Yeah, but it was talking about other tools that you can use in like 5.4 and lower and stuff. Basically,
that's cool.
So that and anything else that I have? No, I think that's about it. To be honest, not replayed with. Oh, yes, I have.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what it was now. What have I been playing with?
You should never do that. Yep, go for it. Yep. ...
I'm gonna have to minimize you guys a second. It was like if I search, I'm sure we've plugged this quite a few times before. So sorry for anyone who's like listened to all our episodes, which is probably no one.
PHP.
But,
this thing called the internet.
I found this thing.
Basically, if you Google lazy load, it's like the number 2.
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
So the jQuery thing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's used like lazy load at one point or another. I think I first used it on like on Musical Umbrella actually, but basically, yeah, I found this really nice one by, and I'm going to get his name horrifically wrong now, but is it Mike Tupela? Something like that. But
Micah.
Micah. Yes, that's it. But I'll put the link in the show notes. But basically, I used that in our content management system at work the other day, integrated it, and it was just really, really easy. Whereas I remember before, something I used like on Musical Umbrella was a bit of a nightmare. So
how do you do? You just like attach it to like a class or something, or is it individual images?
Exactly
or...
that. Yeah, it's
cool.
really nice. Like in the same way that like if you do an Ajax call with the jQuery way, it's got a similar thing. Basically, you got a div and then you call this load method and pass in a file. So all I've done, you could probably do this a lot tidier actually, but I've basically in the file I've just done some PHP to loop through a folder and get all the files, and then I just spit out for each one like an image with a class of lazy on it, and then anything with a class of lazy on it, it basically lazy loads. As soon as it comes visible in the window, it starts loading them. So
it's such a clever idea, isn't it? Because you think of how much bandwidth you're saving, because how many people actually do scroll to the bottom of the page.
Does it actually stop the original HTTP request for that image, and then it calls it in further down the line? Because if you've got,
I think so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because then it would be so good. Because that way, then you don't. Because you think of like all these pages, especially if you've got massive images on pages.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't go to the end of the page. You might as well, if they want it, then they have to load up and, even though it's another HTTP request at that time, but absolutely.
Yeah. But I definitely recommend that. I found it really easy to bring in. So
cool.
But yeah, that is my week. Sorry, went on a bit there, but
that's quite right.
Thought it was all important stuff. So
how about you, Fraser? Yeah, Fraser.
Right.
How about you, Fraser?
It's been okay. The very front end heavy project that I was working on for like 6 months or something that I joyfully said that was finished. They came back and they were like, actually, can we change this? So I've got about another week's work to do on that now, which is going to see me pretty much right up until I go away.
I suppose that's quite nice. At least you've got something that you know about.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it was done in exactly the same way as before. And I can't really grumble because I'm doing work and I'm getting paid for it. But it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've done up these visuals and there's now a button over there, and it's like, okay, you can just do that button, can't you? I'm like, yeah, but that button has got a load of functionality associated with it that also needs to be built, which is, I guess, it's standard when you get in kind of projects from non-technical folk anyway. So yeah, back on that. I had, I think, about 4 working days of working on Angular, and that's been really, really good. I enjoyed that, and kind of it's a bit of a pain that I don't get to work on that right up until I go away. But it's been good anyway. So I've been playing. There's a WYSIWYG. I can use this as one of my picks actually. There's like a WYSIWYG editor that someone's built for Angular, which is really good.
Cool.
Sorry, Michael.
I still can't see Mike. I'm still seeing this pool table thing with a.
Already.
Mm.
And so this WYSIWYG's a really simple, really basic one. So I've been trying to kind of play with that and tweak it to exactly how the designs have come across to how we need to make it look. And then that's pretty much been me for the last week, to be honest with you. I went to the dentist for the first time in 15 years.
So you actually did that. You have to do it for your row, I'm guessing.
I was so scared, like really, really scared. And, like, turned up. And I was like sitting there like shaking it. I wasn't like quite shaking in the chair, but like proper scared in the chair. And he kind of probed around my mouth and apparently everything's fine. But I've been to the hygienist as well, and she's made me buy an electric toothbrush, so it cost me a bit of money. But it was it was all good.
This isn't to do with rowing preparation.
It is, because I need to be signed off for insurance purposes. I need to be signed off by a doctor and by a dentist to be allowed to do the crossing. Which is a bit of a pain in the ass.
Are there any other medical professionals that you need to be signed off by before you do this?
No other medical professionals, no, but I had all the courses. And I got my exam result back for the Yachtmaster course.
Yeah, I saw a tweet on that. Congratulations,
sir.
Sir.
Thank you very much. So I was a little bit worried about that, because that was
if you didn't get that, then you probably wouldn't be going next week.
Exactly, 100%. But yeah, that was the course that I was away for those few weeks a couple of months ago with. So yeah, it's nice to actually finally have the certificate in hand and know that all my courses are now done. So it's getting there. And
how many days until the first? What's the rowing speak for first row?
Sail?
I don't know.
Set sail.
Set sail.
We can call it set sail. Well, I fly out to California a week on Thursday. So I've got 2 days in Los Angeles, then go up the coast to Monterey, which is where the race goes from. So we've got 2 weeks there, and then we leave Monterey, headed for Hawaii on June the 7th.
That's amazing.
And I just need to give us a little plug as well. If anybody's interested in that at all, give us a follow on Twitter at Pacific Rowers.
Nice.
Do we?
And
You
at
said you were doing a
_Ed
website
Man.
for it.
And at _EdMan, of course.
Or Ed_man, sorry.
What's the? You've
Underscore
got a
Ed,
website as well, though, right?
We have got
Yeah.
a website as well. Yeah, it's pacificrowers.com.
I'll put all that in the show notes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Boom. Just trying
Yeah.
to plug it as much as possible. But yeah, and then other than that, I went to see my grandma on Saturday for a couple of days. She lives up in York. Like, my whole family's northern. I'm the only southerner in my family, so
Yeah.
kind of like, so I can make fun of northern people like Michael, so, without guilt, because it'd be like insulting my mother if I was mean.
You're the white sheep of the family, are you?
I am, yeah, 100%. So
Where
yeah,
are
that
they
was
all
good.
based in?
Sorry.
Are they near Manchester or?
No, well, I was born in Stockport, but
Yeah.
my dad's from Carlisle and my mum's from Barnsley. And I was up in Barnsley this weekend, so yeah, that was a nice little event. So yeah, it was good to see the family, and yeah,
It's grim up north, isn't it?
it's not so, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's not being around the bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I tell you guys I lived in Scunthorpe for 2 years when I was younger?
Really
Really?
gutted.
Don't really remember it that
I
well.
was thinking, is this a joke leading to a joke with you? I always think.
No,
this is the
it's
beginning
a
of-
true story.
Oh, right. So the joke was you having to live there in Scunthorpe then, I guess.
Can't really remember. I was little, so it's probably
Scunthorpe,
pointless
yeah.
me telling you that in the first place. But I just thought you
It's
might
a
like
funny
to know
name,
anyway.
though, isn't it? It's a funny name.
It
Come
is.
on, wow,
Anywho.
yeah.
So anyway, anybody got any
Yeah.
picks?
Pray just that picture of me on Twitter, to be honest
That's
with you.
That's a
Beautiful.
good one. That's good. I've got a couple.
It's taken off. It's been retweeted a few times.
Has it really?
It's a good set of moves. Did you hashtag moves? Because I think that
No, I didn't.
Oh no, that would have given us. Actually, people have legitly,
That
web
one
dev,
person.
and they want, and Reddit web devers as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Reddit web
Please
dev.
tell me you're kidding.
Oh, wouldn't that be great if it goes on Reddit? And that's
Oh,
how
that'd be
that's our claim
amazing.
to fame. Our claim to fame for 3 Dozen and Maybe is a picture of us.
Who's Tom Parr? Does anybody know him?
I know him. He's a bit of
Okay.
mine, so he likes you. Don't worry there, Mickey. Oh dear.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he's going
a
to
big fan,
really
yeah.
like you now after that picture.
Oh,
Oh
dear.
no, that's ruined my morale for
So-
at least 2 years.
Oh, I've got quite, I've
Sorry,
got quite a
That's the
few.
first time I've actually looked at it.
I've got
That's
quite a
very
few
good.
links, picks of this week.
Go
Kind
for
of
it.
like a roundup of stuff. Anyone of you heard Computer File? The YouTube channel. Computer
Did
File.
I've read it.
Is that anything to do with Rolf Harris?
No. So if you go to, if you look at the Edman, so you've got the youtube.com user and you go to Computer File, it's quite cool because it's pretty much like lecturers in their field, you know, talking about really just computer stuff. No, not rolfharris.js. Very funny though. Yeah, so I definitely recommend that. There's been some good stuff. It talks about stuff like why floating point numbers and, you know, that type of thing, geeking out a bit like that, about punch card programming, stuff like that, which is quite cool. Another two links I've got is phpw2f.org and wtfjs.com. Now, it's quite cool because PHPW2F, if you go to it, you'll see all the things that, you know, you think to yourself, oh, why does that happen in PHP? And this kind of is like a summary, you know, like just a blog post of twolittleboys.js. This is really not helping me. Anyway, yes, so phpwtf.org is an awesome website just to see the funny things that happen in PHP. And then wtfjs.com is a really good one for JavaScript. Another one, I don't know if you plugged this before, Mickey. It's eval.org, but it's spelled all leet-y.
Okay.
If you check, if you look in the thing, you see like 3v4i.org, and it's essentially what it is great because it's an online PHP shell, so you're able to.
Okay.
Have you done it before? Have you posted?
Someone showed me something very similar the other. I think it was just like PHP Online or something like that. But yeah, similar thing.
It's very
Yeah.
cool because it actually runs that code against loads of versions of PHP, like I think it's like 100 different versions. And
Right.
any ones that give you different output, it will give you them. So say like, you know, in version 4 it will give an error, but then in version 5 it gives you, you know, 5.5 gives you no error or something. It will show both of them. So it will give you this like an aggregate of that, which is quite cool to test things out, to see. It's quite nice because you can test like, I mean, this is quite good for you, Lou, you know, if you're doing shared hosting stuff on Media Temple, to check if a function will run on, you know, and it will come up, you know, and say like, oh, you know, by the way, just chuck in that function in there, do a couple of tests, do an evaluate on it, and see what actually is returned in PHP on the different versions. So I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think the one I plugged the other week was writecodeonline.com, but I don't think it's as sophisticated as what you were saying.
Well, it's weird because I'm always scared of running like PHP, just an eval, because I assume obviously they do a lot of protective things on it and stuff, but it is quite scary to think that you could just arbitrary code, just paste it in and be like, yeah, just run it.
Yeah.
And finally, I've got a tweet of the week. Or actually, it's a tweet of a couple of weeks ago, but it's from Fabian Pod. Fabpot.
Is this that Fatbot one?
Yeah, Fabpot. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, Fab. He's the guy who made Symfony, and so he's pretty high up in the PHP world. And it's really interesting. If you actually read the tweet, it's very funny because what this does. So, in a sense, what it's saying is that if you do like in array foo, so you know the in array function, and you say foo and you say array and you pass in 0, it actually comes true. Due to it's really weird because what it's doing there in its great thing is PHP's using it's coercion. It's changing the types for you. It's type coercion, so it's changing, saying, oh yeah, these two are actually valid types together. It's not using triple equals. It's using single double equals instead. Yeah, so instead you should really pass in the bit at the bottom, the last parameter, which is true, saying it has to be strict typed. Has to be of that type as well. So yeah. That definitely could get you. I mean, I know that's a very, contrived example, but that is kind of scary that you could do that and it says, yeah, by the way, it is in the thing and it's not. So anyway, I thought that was quite interesting.
You do kind of get caught out by these things now and again, don't you? Sometimes you think you've seen it all in PHP and then something like that happens.
Well, it's like those ones, and it's like, because actually, I mean, that is a legit okay thing, because if you look at it, it's like, all right, yes, what it's doing is it's type curse, it's changing the types for you and stuff, it's doing all its magic. But, yeah, it shouldn't be doing that. Well, it should be doing that, but we should know for it. And Mickey, you keep laughing, and I don't know why.
No, I just came back to the video stream, and I could see a big grin on Lewis's face, and it made me think, what have I missed on the video since going onto Twitter to read that tweet? I don't know if it was... In fact, Lewis isn't moving. I've just got Lewis grinning.
Lewis fine for us, mate. Oh, dear.
Is he?
Yeah.
Can you not see him waving his arms around?
No, he's just... It's just a static image of Lewis smiling at me.
Funny enough, same with you though. I can only see your profile, your pool match, and I've been waiting for 26 minutes and no one's hit a shot yet.
Oh dear,
that's very weird.
Starting to think, what's
Lou, have you got any picks of the week?
I haven't got picks of the week. I think when all I'm literally doing at the moment is coding, so I haven't had any time to really learn any kind of new stuff. But
how's the framework going actually? Is that are you using the framework for your whole?
It's all going well. It's all, but it's all just like normal kind of PHP stuff. I haven't really been pulling any new components into it or anything like that. But
have you done a lot of refactoring at all, or is it mainly just been using it as it is and then shipping stuff?
Pretty much using it as it is, just literally trying to get stuff done and completed, and just literally knuckle down and code up the front pages and do all the HTML, CSS, the normal stuff. So. I just literally haven't done any actual raw learning for probably a month and a half now. But once these freelance projects are done, there's things that I really want to go on to, like Node.js and MongoDB, and a few things that I've looked at that look quite interesting and new concepts. And I want to get properly into test-driven development and all that stuff. Although I see that's a very highly debated subject.
Did you see Did you see the Google Hangout? DHH and Kent Beck and I can't remember the other game where he's going to really kill
Uncle Bob?
Not Uncle Bob, it was another one. Martin Fowler or something. He's a British guy. Really interesting Google Hangout on like it, talking about, and it was very interesting. Very interesting. Definitely put that in the show notes.
I have been messing around with Bash scripting quite a bit.
Shell scripts, you like that, do you?
Shell script, because I use the terminal a lot, so... I realised every time I was going into a project, I was going into like the main project, doing my Git pull to get everything down, then going into the framework directory, doing a Git pull in there, then coming back and opening up my Sublime in my my text editor, and then starting the server up. And it just dawned on me this morning, like, why don't I just have a mess around and see if I can do all this in like just one hit, just one function, and I've managed to do that. So now I just say load up and then type in my directory name, and I can do everything from one hit.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Cool.
I love it when you can create like a shell script that just saves you so much time.
It's amazing. It's I do quite like all that actually. That's one of the sides of programming that I do really enjoy.
Absolutely. One thing I did forget to talk about last week was the exception thing we were talking exception podcast from a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
The Python side of it. Now, I don't know if you mentioned this. If you did, I'm really sorry. But
there we go.
Python, no, but like Python using an exception for iteration. So you iterate over like a list or something, or a collection. It will actually, the way it says there's no elements left in the list is by a stop iteration exception. So it actually throws an exception to stop. Now, I know it goes by exactly. You look at Mickey's doing the whole nut exactly because it's not exceptional behaviour. Though people say, well, because exception should be exceptional behaviour. Now, define exceptional behaviour, and I think that to me kind of goes down the route of because you shouldn't use exceptions for program flow. Like you use an if statement or a switch statement or something. It should be for something that, as you discussed on that podcast, Mickey, is something that they could, at that state it can't handle. It can't. Execution can't. Execution stops, and you're not able to deal with that at that level. You need to be able to recover from it, and if not, you can't recover from it. You die gracefully. So it's a bit weird, and I mean there was a lot of talk on it because people are like, but you throw an exception. I remember you mentioning speed and stuff of exceptions. That was one thing I thought, throw an exception just for stopping an iteration. It seems a bit, but what they've actually found out was that in Python, if that's only the case in Python, is that it's actually quicker to throw an exception. The way they've programmed it is quicker to throw an exception than do a check. Like that's another thing. They do this idea. They think that you should ask for forgiveness instead of it's that ask for forgiveness. So if you exactly yeah. So it's the idea that you're asking for something, and if it fails, you'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Here's how to fix it." Instead of saying like, "Oh, can I have that, please?" That kind of we say, "Oh, is there an X one? Oh, thank you, I'll take it. Is there an X one?" This one's like, "Oh, I asked for too much. I'm sorry. This is how I fix it." So it's a different mentality of thinking, but it is weird. It's very much the Python way though, which is throwing exceptions is very gung ho in it, and it happens a lot.
Speaking of errors and stuff like that, actually, there is one thing that cropped up this week which I thought was weird. This might just be me, or it might be some very bad code that I wrote. Do you guys use set error handler in any of your things?
I've started to, only because I found that was like a couple of podcasts ago. I found out about it, and I started like in a couple of small projects. But I know because I'm using Laravel, it normally deals with all that. But
I use that. I basically use set error handler to call a function called log to errors, and then basically inside of there, I've already set my environment, whether it's my development or production environment. But inside of this function, I had like an if-else statement for live and local.
Okay.
And I only realised this week that it was completely ignoring when I was in local and suppressing. I wasn't getting any local errors at all. I've talked about like error problems that I've had locally, but for some strange reason, inside of this function, it wasn't detecting when I was.
It wouldn't call the function when it was in local.
No, it called the function, but it wouldn't execute the settings.
Are you using a closure to pass in the variable, saying that I am in that, or are you passing it like via like a server variable, or is it a global?
Yeah, I'm just defining it. Yeah, I'm defining an environment variable.
So what I've had to do use or something like the use closure thing. You have to define. You say like I want function, and then say use, and then the constant. But I don't know. Actually, maybe constant should always be around anyway.
Well, to fix it, what I've had to do is I've actually had to check the environment and see if it's see if it is my production server, and if it is, then that's when I call the function. And then I've had to tweak the function around. So I've got it to set error to display errors normally if I'm local, but only call this function if I'm not local. Because it didn't seem to matter whether I was local or live. Once I was inside the function, it was always just called ignoring the local stuff. I wasn't getting any errors. So
strange.
Thought that was very, very odd. But
was it exceptional behaviour? Would you say? He's so funny. He's the comedian. Oh dear. Do you take exception to that? Oh Ed. Oh Ed. Oh Ed. Anyway. Oh genius.
So you have to accept Ed sometimes.
We really do need the little drum thing, don't we?
Dear, oh dear.
Can I make a little hardware plug?
And you're showing it to us. Yeah. What is that?
Not for your webcam or video thing.
All-in-one HDD docking.
Oh, what's that?
I can't see it.
Oh yeah, because you can't see me, and I
can you turn your video off and on again? See if that comes back.
All right, let's do that. Can you do the same? Because I've just got a static image of you grinning at me. It's really weird.
They're complaining. We're fine. Yeah?
I bet you're just not moving that much. I don't know. So basically, guy at work was chucking out a load of external hard drives, because I don't know about you guys, I've certainly got like 3 old computers just sitting in my loft, and they all had like decent hard drives at the time. You know, obviously by today's standards, they're absolutely shocking. But like, basically, he had like quite a few. Like, I think this was like 80 gigabytes. So I was like, yeah, I'll take them. And I bought this off Amazon. It's just like a docking station for external hard drives, not external hard drives, internal hard drives, and then you just literally dock it in. And this one takes both types of
Does it take the laptop, so like the 3.5 and then the 2.5 as well? Or SATA and IDE? Does it? So
yes,
is it SATA and
SATA and IDE? Yeah,
that's cool.
So it's pretty. You know, for 15 quid, when you think what you pay for an external hard drive, and
well, it's good just to back up. I mean, you could just back up stuff. At least then you've got an extra copy of it. You know, of something. You know, it's.
Yeah, I just backed up a load of my images and stuff, like me topless on podcasts, and so.
To be fair, the Twitter's backed that up for you now. A lot of people enough for all the internet's backed that up for you.
A few retweets, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a few new followers this time tomorrow, I imagine. So.
Damn it, that's a good idea. Everyone take your tops off. Let's do it. I want more followers.
I just want to point out, I am up to 71 followers now.
So, good work.
And what were you at last count? Sorry.
67, I think.
Oh,
so I'm kind of a big deal now.
Yeah. So, pretty much the boss.
Yeah.
I have a book plug that I'd like to share.
You need to explain this.
Haven't actually started reading it yet.
What plug?
But it's a book on version control. It's like Foundation version control by a chap called Chris Kemper and co-authored by Ian Oxley. I was just on Reddit, as I spend half my life on Reddit, because you know, I'm a loser. I was in Reddit Web Dev, and there was a chap a few weeks back basically said that I've written this book and I've got a load of spare copies left over from the publisher. Does anybody want one? So I said, well, I'm very keen to have one, because like one of my Achilles heels is version control. So I kind of sent this guy a message, and then he had a bit of a back and forth, and it came through the post a couple of days ago. I've only read like a few pages of it, but I've got big hopes for it. So
good thing is that you should have lots of time to read that on the boat.
That's the thing, yeah. All the 12 hours a day that I'm not rowing for 5 weeks.
You want to learn about version control. That's really cool. Actually, quite cool.
You got a free book out of it.
That's cool. Let's go.
Yeah, it's pretty and fair play to him, because he sent it out and he even paid for the postage, and he said he had I think he had about 10 or something that he was giving out. So very kind of him to ship that over. So if anybody's interested in a good book on version control, can't vouch for it because I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's the best book you'll ever read.
Because it's
free. I'd highly recommend you buy it.
Which version is it?
It covers which version of what? Of
what
version
control? What hash is it?
Did I just miss that joke altogether?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh dear, that was a good one though. High five. Boom.
Missed.
Too slow.
Oh dear. Right.
But anyway, so I hear you've got some topics to talk about today.
I have a topic to talk about today. It may bore you to death for about 15 minutes or so, but it is quite interesting in that it tells a story about text on the web and in the world of computers and binary and all that funky stuff. So, shall I start? I suppose.
Yes.
This is a story of. I shouldn't really start now. Anyway, right. So, computers. Okay, so fundamentally, computers just deal with numbers, don't they? Binary, ones and zeros, base 2. And more specifically, actually, they just deal with bytes. And bytes are 8 bits. There's 8 bits to a byte. And the way we store letters, so we don't actually store letters or the alphabet as that. We store them as numbers. So we have a binary representation for it. And, what was that?
I dropped a pen.
Right, that's all right. Okay, so we got a binary representation for these numbers. And the way we make sense of this, say, is that, we have an agreed upon translation. So say, like, Lewis, who's now writing a letter to me, and, he's writing it a number, something. What are you doing?
Sorry, nothing. Don't worry. No, sorry.
Okay, right. Okay, so anyway, so to make sense of these numbers that we have to have agreed upon translation. So say I is saying, 1 is A, 2 is B. So if Fraser's, understands that, that 1 is A to us and 2 is B, when we're talking, it's fine. But then if Lewis comes along and he says, well, actually, no, instead of 1 being A, I've got, 1 being 20. Now, of course, you can see there that there's going to be a problem that, we both aren't agreeing, and something may come out the other end for Lewis, but it won't be the thing that I actually wanted him to see on my end. So in the 60s, there was a big thing about this. So in the 60s, it became apparent to the computer and telecommunications industries that a non-priority method of encoding was needed. And this is when ASCII came about. So I'm sure if you heard of ASCII.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. Hint, that may be on the quiz, so just someone remember that. And what this was in itself was its standardized character encoding scheme. It was first published in 1963, and initially it was designed for teletype machines. So you know the old machines where you'd have your mainframe downstairs, and you'd have these just black, just this screen and a dumb terminal with a computer, with a keyboard, and it would hit and it would actually send it off downstairs. This consisted of 28 characters, which were based on our English-Latin alphabet, and this included all our numbers, letters, uppercase and lowercase, basic punctuation symbols, and some control symbols. Also, control codes. The control codes are actually quite interesting because they took up 33 of the available characters, but now are mostly obsolete at this stage, and that's because, so for example, character 10 used to represent a line feed, and that actually was which caused a printer to actually advance its paper. So it was back then. So we actually still use this. These control codes are still available for advancing a paper in a printer. Another interesting one is like the character 127, which of course, because there's 128, we start at 0, is the last one of the ASCII standard. And this is actually delete. And in the days of punch card programming and punch cards, it was very useful. As it allowed to, if you think about all the binary, all 7 holes, bits of it were punched, which in effect made it, removed any trace of the information, which is quite a cool way, thinking of how to delete something. You'd remove all of it because all of the bits were punched. The remaining 95 of them, however, were printable characters, our A's, our Z's, our numbers and stuff, and that also included the space. So all of these were represented in 7 bits. That's interesting because I just talked about a byte being 8 bits. So that will go on in a minute. This was a great way for us to, for people to communicate back then. It was a standard, everyone could do it. All the devices knew about it, etc., etc. But over time, though, 8, 16, and 32-bit computers, so we're not even getting to 64, but also include 64 in that, began to replace 18 and 36-bit computers. So it then became available, it then became common to be able to use an 8-bit byte to store each character in memory. And this, of course, provided an opportunity for a whole extra bit of information to be taken advantage of. So you had this extra bit, and it says you had this whole other, opened up all these other, numbers that you could start to use. And of course, us, because standards being standards, they were slow and everything, and, it took a while. So a similar issue to what occurred before with the ASCII standard appeared. And again, everyone started doing whatever they wanted with that extra space. Most early computer systems actually developed their own 8-bit character sets, and they contain stuff like line drawing, and language-specific symbols. Things like borders and stuff. So IBM computers actually started adding ASCII symbols for borders, like printing out borders and stuff around text and everything, and all this weird stuff that actually became part of standard. And they also often filled in all of the control characters as well, from 0 to 31 with graphics, because they thought, well, you don't use these control symbols anymore. Why do we want it? Just add it. Includes things that may be quite useful for that day and age. And as different vendors developed their own systems, began to adapt them for use in other markets that use several different languages and scripts. So a large number of different encoding standards resulted. This could mean that products were often tied to a single... Is the TV on somewhere?
No, not me.
I can hear something.
I can see a TV.
I can hear it. I can't see it.
Mine is on, but it's quiet. It's been on the whole time, though.
Oh, right, okay. So, yeah, products were often tied to a single encoding. And this is software products, which did not allow for users to work with multilingual data or data coming from incompatible systems. And developers were also required to support multiple versions of their products to serve to different markets. Could you imagine that now? You have to produce a whole different version for a different market. So say you're in France, you have to have that version. Say you're in America, you're using another version. All these standards, all these encodings were incompatible. There was no standard. So you can see that was a big problem there. We had ASCII and it started off great, but then obviously as the 8th bit came into play, boom, everyone's doing what they want with it. and there's not a standard way of being able to use it. And also another thing is that obviously, people in like, Japan and China and stuff, they don't even care about the Latin characters. They want their own characters, so they're using their own thing. And it just makes, for this whole thing of being the complete and utter cluster, a cluster F. Anyway, so then came along, and I'm sure you know this one, it's a bit of a weird, ISO 8859. Does that ring any bells?
Yes. Charset.
The charter, absolutely. And so what ISO 8859 did was provide standards for all the different encoding schemes that were, that resulted from this 8th bit. While the bit patterns of the 95 principal ASCII characters were sufficient to exchange information in modern English, most other languages that use Latin alphabets, so this is only still dealing with Latin alphabets, needed additional symbols not covered by ASCII. So what they did was they divided a series of standards for 8-bit character encodings, and currently there are 15 parts. So they've got these 255 or 56, for the 8th bits, and each one of them there's 15 different versions of these ISO 8859 standards. We've got the first, which is intended for Western Europe languages, and we were able to include other things in, things such as they were able to in Western Europe, and they included things for France, including stuff for Spain, etc. Like the different characters and stuff. And then stuff like the page 2 or the part 2 was intended for Eastern Europe. And you can see, there you go, you've got all these standards now, and they're all standard, and you say, and this allowed for another 96 printable characters. And you could see, that's great, because obviously on this machine, I'm using ISO 88591 because it's we're in Britain, and then in America they're using the same, but then maybe, in Poland they're using 2 or something like that. And, you could work out from that. As long as you knew the char set, you were fine. But that still was a bit of a problem, though, because you couldn't squip between the two. You couldn't have a document that had both in. And the way you'd have to get around that, obviously, if it became a massive pain, was to make a brand new standard with some of the characters for some in and some of the characters in the other in. And also you need to know what character set it was in at that time as well, when it was, what it was intended for. And it's actually quite interesting. So a revision so I don't know, when did the Euro come in? It's a really random question, but
I think it would have been 96-ish.
What? No.
Was it later?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was still Franks when I was at not sixth form. When I was in comprehensive school, it was still Franks.
That's a really good question. I'd say earlier than that.
Would you?
Oh, I don't know.
But it's interesting.
What was the question? I've just come back.
Oh,
what was the
I'm
question?
going 94. Is this in the quiz?
No.
Oh,
It's just me just because. So what happened was
94.
94. Okay, so ISO 8859 and then part 15 was actually a revision to our original one, our Western Europe part 1, that actually removed some of the little used characters and then replaced them with like the Euro sign, etc., and a couple more. So because they had to keep the old one and then they had to make a new one, so you've got part 15 and you've got part 1, and if you want to use the Euro now, you're using part 15, and it's all getting a bit confusing again. Actually, a random tangent, and good old Windows being Windows, a popular further extension, which this is going to be an interesting one actually, because you probably have found the same problem that I had with it as well. So a popular further extension, which was designed by Microsoft, was Windows 1252, and that's often mislabeled as being ISO 8859 Part 1. 2002, wow.
In France.
Oh, in France. Well, that's still quite...
Apparently. Yeah.
That's pretty...
right.
Wow. And so what Windows 1252 did was added some typographic punctuation marks needed for traditional text printing. And the way it went around that was it used ISO, the part 1 of ISO 8859, so our Western Europe one. But it also placed displayable characters rather than control codes in the range 128 to 159. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. So a common result of this confusion was that all quotes and apostrophes produced by smart quotes in word processing software. So, you get your problem with Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
And, when you copy and paste it into, say, another editor, something like that, where it replaced with question marks or boxes or non-Windows operating system. So it produced it with another quote because it's actually using a different encode. It's using a different character than what you normally think it is. And that's because of Windows 1252, because they thought, well, we can just make our own one up because who cares? Now, obviously, Fortunately, it's all the latest versions, like Windows, I think from Windows XP up. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Windows Vista. Bloody hell. They started using Unicode and UTF-8, or UTF version. So it's that is much better now. But still, with the legacy now of Windows 12.52. Anyway, so this worked well for a while because we can all still communicate. We could communicate with ourselves. Like saying like, I can talk to Fraser in Western Europe, and if I need to talk to someone in Poland, I can use Eastern Europe, and blah blah blah. We still have the problem where we can't really, together. I can't meld them together, or but that's okay because when if you needed to do that, it's a very specific case, and you won't make workarounds around that. You probably make your own encoding for something like that if you're in a big business. It wasn't that much hassle if you needed to get between different languages because you knew in its specific use case. Then the World Wide Web happened though, and that's when everything hit the fan because now everyone can talk to everyone. Now you've got everything on all pages, different encodings and stuff like that, and now the fact that it's a closed thing that I can talk to you, Mickey, but if you're using a different encoding, but I know you're encoding. Now I don't know you're encoding, or there's so many encodings out there, you may not provide me with the right one, and I have to now make a guess. And now making a guess in encodings can be so hard, especially in the case of like these parts on an ISO 8859 standard. So it's quite funny. So now everyone able to communicate with everyone else. The idea of these different encodings used around the world ends in mass confusion. Which one do you use? Programs need to know what code encoding to use in order to display the contents of the file correctly. And if a program uses the wrong encoding, it may show text as, and I'm going to really butcher this word, but there's a Japanese one, it's called emoji bank. Emoji bank? There's actually a word in Japanese to describe incorrect, like malformed encoding.
Because you said the first part of that word is emoji, and like emojis are little character things that you get on iPhones, aren't they?
I'll put it in, it's emoji bank. Someone else may have been much better. But it's so funny, it's an actual word in Japanese to describe this issue, and the translation for it is transform, and the definition is the presentation of incorrect, unreadable characters when software fails to render text correctly according to the associated character encoding. So it's quite funny that this problem was so common that the Japanese even made a word for it. And then also like the thing of that, what happens if you want to display multiple encodings on the same page? Like search engine results, because maybe you're searching for something, but, there's a French, result that says equal maybe to the Japanese result in some cases, on the same page, you should be able to, show the same results, but you can't at this time. And like, as I mentioned briefly before, you've got Chinese, Japanese and Korean, and that's abbreviated to the CJK. Which they are, of course, they don't use ISO standards. They used standards with multi-bytes because there's so many characters to use, like Big 5, Shift JIS, and ISO 2022. So what a complete mess this was. And this was what it was like for probably, at the beginning and still through even the noughties as well. There was problems with, with people not bringing it up and not starting to use. Fortunately now it's much more popular, Unicode. So all that rambling to just say that Unicode then came about. Now, I suppose actually I'll put it to with me started yabbing on. What's your opinion? When I say Unicode to you, Mickey, what do you think?
Well, uni meaning one, and then code meaning code.
Because your company, they do like multilingual sites and stuff, so you must have to deal with this like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we've kind of changed the way that we're tackling it recently, so it's quite new to me, but yeah, it's a way of overcoming all those obstacles of having catering for multiple languages. But yeah, I have a few questions actually after, but I'll if you wanted to ask the same question to the other guys, go for it. But
how about you, Lou?
It's a bit of a foreign concept to me, to be honest. It's never something that's actively come up in any of the projects that I've done. I guess the only way you kind of learn something properly like that is when something goes wrong.
Something bites,
and you're kind of forced into a position to.
You have to then learn it.
It's never something. It's an interesting subject. But it's something that I've never had to actively deal with yet, to be honest. I guess is it something that I just maybe take for granted?
Because I did, and I have taken it for granted massively, and it's kind of scary to think that we can just go around thinking it's because the trouble is because we use the real text that we use is just ASCII normally. So because we, talk, I mean, we may use some of the characters, we use like the pound sign maybe sometimes and stuff like that, but typically we just use an ASCII still. And that's available on all these encodings. Until, you come to the fact that then, you do need to start taking in consideration for other languages. How about you, Fraser? What about you with Unicode? And
pretty much the same as the other guys, just really ignorant to it. And then, like Lewis said as well, the only time I have come across it is when there's been issues.
And you get you get the question mark,
Exactly, which I guess are the emoji bakes or whatever you call them. But we had an issue where we were using the Twitter API to pull in people's Twitter feeds when we were storing them in a database. And then when we store them in the database, these emojis, basically they were turning into these emoji bakes and we were just getting random dead characters. So basically, we had to. It was running an older version of MySQL server, so we had to upgrade the MySQL server to get the appropriate encoding that we needed. And for the life of me, I can't remember what the encoding was that we had to use in the end.
I bet you it was UTF-8s. I bet you it was UTF-8.
To be honest, I think it was using UTF-8 before, but it was a different version of UTF-8 that we had to use.
Wow.
Yeah, to get it to display these emojis.
Well, that's going to be part of the quiz as well, so you keep hold of that. Boom.
Boom. You two forget that.
I'm going to do so badly in this quiz.
So Unicode. So Unicode is the industry standard character set encoding developed and maintained by the Unicode Consortium. And the Unicode project began in 1988 with representatives from Xerox and Apple collaborating to develop a single character set encoding that could support all of the world's text. So they wanted all of the world's scripts, sorry. And currently the Unicode character set is able to support over 1.1 million characters. And only currently about 110k, so 1,000 of them are actually assigned, which is quite amazing. So it's much more than your 8 bits of 256 being the max number you can get out of it, or 255, sorry. So the first thing to point out, though, I should point out, is that it's not an encoding. It's more like you can think of it as a key value store, which maps a symbol or a glyph, and a glyph is just a symbol, fancy word for symbol, to a unique integer code point and a canonical name. So a canonical name, a unique name that it can be picked by. So you've got your code point, meaning like in the case of the letter A, the capital Latin letter A is the code point 41 in hexadecimal, because they do everything in hex. So you have U plus, and it'd be 00 because you have to pad it up to the 4 hex, and it's 41. And there's the letter A, and the actual name of that code point is Latin capital letter A in capitals. So in Unicode there are and the way they designed it was there's 7 different planes, and planes really are just groupings. And the first being what we tend to use most, called the basic multilingual plane. Now remember that word, basic multilingual plane, BMP, and this has English, French, and Spanish. And you only require to have 4 hex codes to deal with this one. And then the 2 up to 17 are called the supplementary planes, or the astral planes. And these have everything else, you have the Chinese, etc. like that. This is the genius part, and it's really clever. So to allow backwards compatibility, the 128 ASCII and the 256 ISO 88591, the Latin 1 characters, are assigned the identical Unicode points, so as to make it trivial to convert existing Western text. Now, because the thing is, we had, obviously, throughout all these years, produced so much text, and Windows had so much, we produced all this text and stuff. To make it convert it into another format, it is a lot hard, to a completely different way. It would be impossible, and also it would make it very slow for adoption. So what they did was, they were very clever. They said, look, and I feel kind of bad for every other country, because obviously they're just like, yeah, we're using our one, but obviously they probably saw that more people, this was being used the most. So 128, the ASCII, and that comprised of the superset of that is the 256 for ISO 8859 part 1, and then obviously Unicode. And also many essential identical characters were actually encoded multiple times at different code points, which are different numbers, just to preserve the distinctions used in legacy encoding. So it really did take into consideration the fact that, look, we need to deal with the problems that happened before. We can't just forget that all this data isn't there, because it is. And it's this design decision, actually, to be that abstract with just giving it an integer code point, not an actual implementation, that allows Unicode to define 3 different encoding forms. And this is what you're talking about, Fraser, and each able to represent the entire character set. So The three encoding forms are based on 8, 16, and 32-bit code units, and that making Unicode suitable for implementation on like a wide variety of use cases. Maybe your phone, your TV, because like your radio. Anything needs the ability to be able to display these characters. And this allows you, the developer, to pick the correct encoding implementation for you, such as in your MySQL version, you had to pick the correct encoding, but you could, because based on the fact that you needed it like that. And no matter what the platform, no matter what the program, and no matter what the language is. And it's quite interesting because there's a certain case that so obviously we'll go into technical details of UTF-8 in a minute, because that's the most popular and the one, pretty much the de facto of them now. But the version UTF-16. The way that works is that it actually uses 2 bytes, which is 16 bits, to represent each number. Well, no, sorry, not each number, each code point. And actually, that is multi-byte. So, because what actually happened beforehand was there was one called UCS2, which used 2 bytes, and it was a fixed one. But that couldn't actually get up to all of the encoding when it became bigger and became up to 32 bits. So what happens is UTF-16 is actually multi-byte, meaning that it can use 2 16 bytes, which will make it up to 32. And it's interesting because then the CJK languages, such as China, Japan, and Korea, they actually get quite annoyed because we use UTF-8, because they have to, all their characters require a lot more data to store them. Like their encodings are built for their languages, but obviously we're using UTF-8 where it's built really for us Western people, Europe people, because it's fine, because we've got nice low numbers for our A's, and it's still only 1 byte. Well, they're using at least 3 or 4 bytes, so their files are going to be probably like double, if not triple, in size in certain cases, and that's when using, say, like UTF-16 is actually a better encoding for them than UTF-8. But anyway, that's for another day. So yes, UTF-8. I'm sure you all heard of UTF-8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good old UTF-8. All we do is we pop it on the top of our HTML page, and we think, yeah, great. We don't deal with ISOs anymore. Put it at UTF-8, and we're fine. UTF-8 is an encoding. It's the 8-bit encoding of the Unicode standard. It's Unicode. UTF stands for Unicode Transformation Format. This isn't to be confused with USC, which is the Universal Character Set, which is another what happened was there was actually 2 different because what happens is obviously people have the same idea, but they want to do it different ways, and there was 2 different projects going on at the same time, but then they merged into one. And UCS is commonly, you can commonly think of that as UTF-16, but not as clever and not as good because it can't do the extra, because it doesn't use the multi-byte. But anyway, UTF-8 uses 1 to 4 bytes per code point, and being compact for Latin text in particular, and ASCII compatible, which is its main strength. So not only is the Unicode code points the same, but the fact that the ASCII codes are exactly the same for UTF-8, it has won out as being the most popular encoding implementation. So what that means, though, is like, Mickey, if you give me a file that's just encoded in ASCII, I can open it up in UTF-8 and it works exactly the same, because they're exactly the same. Now, if I give you a file that's written in UTF-8, and I'm only using typically the ASCII code set, but maybe I'm using some funky stuff as well. If I give that to you and you try and read it in ASCII, you're pretty much going to be able to see what's going on. It's going to have the main bit. You may have some areas where you're like, oh, he's using an apostrophe, like a maybe a pound sign or something, but pretty much it's going to be okay. So it deprecates well. It both, you can evolve with it, and then you can also go back. So that's pretty cool. And that's a bit more information on that. So 128 characters are encoded using the 1 byte, which is the ASCII characters. 1,920 characters are encoded using 2 bytes. That's the Roman, Greek, Cyrillic, Hebrew, algebraic, boom. And then
is that what you wanted?
And
I just given you the wrong word.
Arabic.
Arabic.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Same thing, algebra.
Arabia. Arabic, sorry. And then 63,000 characters are encoded using 3 bytes. That's so they hate it. Yeah, there's 3 bytes to use theirs. So in the case of we only need 1 byte, they need 3 bytes, and that's Chinese and Japanese are among them. And the other characters, which are 4, 5, and 6, encoded using 4, 5, and 6 characters, they're not assigned yet, but they're available for the future. And typically what they've done is they've actually reserved lots of spaces in the Unicode standard for us to say, you know what, you can do. Actually, some of them are privately, like Klingon. So Klingon isn't part of. Yeah. So Klingon isn't part. It's the quiz you're gonna love because you're gonna think, why are these things part of the Unicode standard? But anyway, they are. But Klingon isn't actually technically part of the standard. But people have actually used the reserved space that is available, saying, look, if you and your friends want to use this space of the code, for whatever language you want, you can use it. And then Klingon has been implemented in that, obviously, because they're all geeks. Sorry, Trekkies. Anyway. So that is UTF-8, Unicode, ISO 55, ISO standards of 8859 and ASCII. Definitely bored you all to death. It is very interesting. I found it very interesting because I assumed, I just assumed, look, hey, it's easy. It's just text, isn't it? We all do the same. You're about to, it's like... And it's not, because if we lived in another country, we would then actually have these problems. But because, of course, we're quite naive in the fact that we just assume, everything's ASCII, everything's ISO, we're fine. Part one, of it. So I suppose the real question here is, have you ever been bitten by the Unicode thing in PHP?
Yeah. Go
on, Mickey. Explain.
So just the other week, basically... I actually found that, if all your tables in your MySQL database are set as UTF-8, you can just shove anything in there and it actually...
Yep.
When you go in and get the information from the database, you can render it fine on the front end. So that's fine. But then what happened was I had a query that was taking something from the database and it was doing like a match on that content. Someone else had done the code and they were doing it on text rather than an integer, which was a bit... but there we go. But in that text, basically, there was what looked like an apostrophe. It wasn't an apostrophe, though. It's like something very similar. Yeah. It's like a very straight line. And basically, even though someone had tried to encode it before it went into the database, usually what you'd expect is something like ampersand rs quo, something like that. But it hadn't, because it wasn't an apostrophe, so it didn't take it. And then...
So did it store it actually as is?
As like the... And then what happened is that ended up breaking the SQL statement because it saw it as like, like parsing the string. So I got burnt with that. And I'm just so lucky actually that Ed tweeted about this library, this UTF-8 encoding library, which then I basically put in straight away and it fixed the problem like that. It was so brilliant. That library was fantastic. Which I guess you'll plug in a minute.
So. Oh, no, well, I think I plugged it last week, but again, it is very cool, isn't it? The fact that... Because these things shouldn't be...
Very, very cool.
You think this problem's been around for so many years, but we're still... PHP, so the history of PHP is that in PHP 6, in quote 6, which will never happen, I don't think, what they've done for the ground up, they said, Unicode, UTF-16, I think it was, we're going to build, from the ground up, it's going to support it. That never happened because it's too big a project. And the terrible is PHP actually doesn't consider Unicode code points. It doesn't consider it considers them as bytes. So it assumes that in all our ISO, because they all work for the ISO standards as well, and they assume that one character is 8 bytes, or no, 8 bits. Sorry, 8 bits, 1 byte, which is fine if you're doing a string length of Lewis. Hey Lewis, it's 5 characters, boom, because they all work in the ASCII code. But what happens if then as you said, and also, you add like a funky symbol in, that instead of encoding, in UTF, because even though I'm passing that in as UTF-8, it's still the low down level implementation of it is still an ASCII for, the same codes. But then I say, what, I want to put a dollar sign in, or not dollar, a pound sign, or something like that. And instead of, because it's a multi-byte character encoding, instead of using just 1 byte for that, it uses 2. Now, if I go with Lewis, instead of it being 6, which I assume, it's actually 7. And because it's saying, it's just bytes, it's just assuming bytes, which is really bad in that case.
There's some very annoying things, though, that you have to watch out for. But like you say, just, for example, like the pound symbol, you got your ampersand, is it ampersand pound?
Ampersand and, yeah.
Yeah. And then, if you then use that in a sitemap in an XML file, that's then invalid. You need to then use the actual pound symbol.
Yeah.
And it's really infuriating, like these little differences you have to look out for.
And the thing is, the language PHP doesn't help you with it really. What they have done is they have two libraries. They've got the multi-byte string library and the iconv library. And the multi-byte one is the great one. Well, they're both great, but they can convert between encodings. But like, say I want to then with that Lewis string, I want to make sure it is 6. I can say mb_stringlen, and I can say, look, okay, I know that this string is encoded in UTF-8 because, that is what the user input was. Because it's whatever the user input was, it gets transferred to me in the bytes. I can then use that and take that into consideration when actually getting the string length of it. And then the same with iconv. Well, iconv does a lot of conversion for you. Python, I watched a very good, interesting presentation on Python, and Python 2 actually has a Unicode type. So there's a string type, which is bytes, and it has a Unicode type. And it's weird because it juggles between the two, which is very bad. Now, what then 3 does instead is it just says, look, your string type is Unicode all the time, and they're just legitimately Unicode code points. We should just be thinking now in code points instead of thinking them as bytes.
Yeah.
And then it's got a byte type that then you can convert back to, because networks and machines and everything, we all deal with bytes, but we need to be able to know what encoding was. And that's why, it's fine for us to say, like on our websites, oh, it's UTF-8, but then we don't tell PHP when we're using string length that even though we're saying it's, we're fine using, UTF-8, what happens if someone does actually put a character in that's a multi-byte UTF-8 character? We don't deal with that. We're like, oh yeah, no, you're so say like, like you say, oh, a maximum, your username is a maximum of 10 characters, but then you put in one, a couple big Chinese characters. You're then complaining like, well, no, it's that's the developer's issue, and that's wrong. And that's when I was like, oh wow, I have been doing it wrong all this time. And it's really bad development because it's really.
I also got burnt by the string length thing as well. Yeah,
it's and the substrings and stuff like that. Any manipulation on these strings because you're then assuming that it's each byte is a character, and it's really ignorant on our part. I know because obviously in Western Europe we can just be ignorant on it, but we shouldn't anymore, and we can't because of the web. And yeah, I thought it's really and an interesting little thing on one of these presentations that I looked at was quite cool. On Facebook and stuff, they have like these fancy character generators where you can type in your name. I'll send it to you. You can type in your name, and what it does is it just converts your name. And you said like there's similar symbols in the Unicode for like different things. And it would say like, you put Lewis in, and instead of the L, like a normal L for us, it'll be something different. And what this would do is give you a Unicode version of a string. So it'll look like the string you want, but it will be a Unicode version. And it's good to test that information. Just run it through your system. See how it does. You try and register a user with a Unicode string instead, like that, and see what it does. Try and run the length on it, because Twitter even got bit by it. Twitter's own system on there, it says like the Twitter, JavaScript version, it says like, how many characters you've got left. If you started putting Unicode stuff in, it actually did it wrong. So even Twitter, and that's really bad that's a multilingual site on it and masses. So yeah,
and you built Twitter, so
I did, and that was the big problem with it,
Embarrassing.
Anywho, I've been talking for way too long. Anyone have anything to chime in on that?
I did have a question, but I've forgotten it, so I'll pass over to someone else.
Boom.
Anyone else?
No,
I've got nothing to contribute. I've been very much just sitting and taking it all in. I've kind of shared my only experience with Unicode issues and stuff anyway. So
I think I've officially bored everyone to death.
No, we're looking forward to the quiz.
We've got a quiz.
I've been
right
sitting here
now.
taking. I don't know about those guys, but I've been sitting here taking notes. So you're all going
It's not a
down.
particularly interesting topic, but you're right. It is really important.
It is an interesting. I find it really interesting, like because Unicode. The idea of Unicode is the fact that all these tech, historical texts and stuff, like from olden times, if we haven't got a way to encode it in this digital age, they just go. We need to be able to store all this information and in a representative way. But anyway, moving on. I'm really sad.
Right.
Quiz time, guys.
Can I, before we do this quiz?
Yes.
Did you guys listen to the Steve Merchant, Ricky Gervais, Cole Pilkington podcasts?
No.
Are they still recording that, or is this?
They haven't recorded them for a while, but Cole Pilkington used to watch Mastermind. Okay. So he's obviously he's not the kind of person that'd be very good at Mastermind. So what he used to do is he used to try and guess out of all the contestants which contestant would get the question.
Right.
So I might do that. So Ed asked the question, and I'm going to guess whether whether Fraser or Mike.
I think you'll be all right with these. I do think you will.
Abby says that I'm like Cole Pilkington. Would you agree?
You look like no.
You've got the same haircut.
You've got the same physique.
Same outlook on life, I think, as well.
Yes, depressed.
I definitely have.
Yeah.
Depressed.
Right. Should we do this quiz? Are you ready to do this? Right. So
BNP.
BNP. Well, hang on. Wait a minute. Whoa, guys.
All right.
Which of these is not a Unicode encoding implementation? UTF-816BE, UTF-64, UTF-16LE, or UTF-32LE?
I'm so glad you asked this question. It's the last one.
That is not UTF-32LE.
It's the second last one.
Okay, and Lewis?
I think I've got it because you didn't say no straight away.
Oh, brilliant. Now Lewis
would you think UTF-64 is an encoder?
UTF-23 or whichever the second one was?
So it's actually the second one, which is UTF-64. The LE and the BE
that's what I said.
Big Endian and Little Endian. The idea that, in bytes and stuff, if we have multiple bytes that consist of a number, it's which is the least or the least significant or the most significant should come first or not.
Wait, did Fraser get that?
No one got that.
Lewis got it. He said the second one, I think.
Did you say second? Boom, got the point. Right, so can you register a Unicode domain?
Yes.
No.
No?
Quite possibly.
Yes or no? I need a definite yes or no.
I can neither confirm nor deny at this time.
I'm going yes, because you wouldn't ask the question if you couldn't, so yes,
okay. Okay, and then Lewis?
That's my answer.
Okay. So you can't.
There's no need for that.
You can only register domains with ASCII symbols. It's not possible to register a name with Unicode code points. Well, what's interesting actually though is it uses something called, you're going to laugh at this because it is hilarious, puny code.
Puny code.
Puny. P-U-N-Y code. So what this does is it's actually inbuilt in all our browsers, and what that does is actually the Unicode characters are actually transformed uniquely and reversibly into ASCII. Mm-hmm. So the browser includes one of these encoders and decoders for this translation. So you can actually, like say your Chinese characters and stuff, what actually will happen is there'll be an ASCII equivalent that you then register instead, which is quite funny. This is going to be so which of these is a Unicode point name? Okay, so a code point's a symbol. Which of these is a symbol? Pile of poo, pile of socks, pile of towels, or pile of shoes? These are part of the actual standard in Unicode that will be set in stone.
Pile of poo.
Okay, Fraser, what about you, Lou?
Pile of socks, was that one?
We've got socks.
Pile of socks. Yeah.
Socks, okay, and then Mickey.
I think Fraser's pretty right, but I'll go with shoes to be different.
It is pile of poo.
Because it's the little symbol on the iPhone thing.
Absolutely, and that is a symbol that is actually used. I think it's used in Asia, anyway.
Trust you to know that, Fraser.
So I think Fraser's winning at the moment.
I think I'm even Stevens with Lewis.
Okay. Maybe, Mickey, you can get back on this. What does ASCII stand for? I told you this.
Shit. Oh, man. I tried to write it down. I couldn't find a pen anywhere. American Standard Character International Index.
Okay. Fraser?
American Standard Character Information Interchange. Boom!
He's Googled it. Come on.
No, he said it before, and I wrote it down when he said it.
I think I said it. I hope I didn't say it wrong, because that's wrong, and I think I may have said it wrong, so you have to get a point. I really screwed this one up. Lewis, how about you, sir?
Absolutely shocking. Kind. It is.
Okay, so it's actually
absolutely shocking. Kind it is.
It's the American Standard Code for Information Interchange.
Oh,
I think I should get you a point because I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. This one was one I discussed. In the ASCII, where does the control code delete come, and why? What position does it come in?
What's a control code?
Control. So control the control code delete.
Okay,
Yeah, because it didn't make any sense to me
The last
before
one.
that.
And what's that then? What would that number be?
7.
1.
Five.
Right. Oh, sorry. That's what you're
You
saying.
have 8 bits, and the highest number you can make out of out of 7 bits. What's the highest number?
7.
9.
Come on, that's got to be right.
64.
Okay. You got half a point for the last one. How about you, Lou?
7.
7.
There's logic. It may not be right, but there's logic
How
to
about
it.
you,
So I'm going
Fraser?
to go with that.
Where's it going?
49.
Okay, so it's
What are
actually...
you doing, Fraser?
Okay, so Mickey
Take my
gets...
socks off.
That's weird. Pile of socks. Yeah, that's what made you think of it. It's because you got a pile of poo.
I'm planning on it.
So it's actually the 127th, because as you said, Mickey, it was the last one, because punch holes, you would actually punch all of the 7, because then that would make it remove it. So I'll get you half a point.
Boom.
What does BMP stand for?
Oh, man. Do I get a point for shouting it?
I said, like, I did say throughout, I was like, you better remember that. You better remember that.
I think I remember.
Oh, go for it.
Basic multilingual plane.
Boom. Oh, right.
Yeah. I was going to say the same as
No,
well.
you weren't.
I was.
You totes for goes weren't. Were you?
Oh.
I don't believe you.
No, not at all. Any shape or form.
Okay. What is this is going to be a boring one. Sorry. What is a surrogate pair? And there is a lot of dirty things. Lou, I know what you're thinking.
Ooh, a surrogate.
A surrogate pair
is someone that like takes on something,
it
like a surrogate mother.
Yeah.
So
maybe like 2 other characters, when used together, represent a single.
oh, that's a really
thing?
good description. You could almost put that on the internet. Maybe.
Did I do it?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Did you totally Google that or not?
No, I
That's
totally
pretty-
just
that's
guessed.
pretty
Because
good.
it was like the surrogate mother.
I want to
thing.
see your hands like from now on.
Just keep doing this, yeah.
For 2 reasons.
so-
But carry on.
So what surrogate pair is, yeah, as Fraser said, yeah, it's characters outside the BMP. You know,
I'm not
so-
even being given an opportunity to
sorry.
ask these questions anymore.
Well, because you just keep saying. Maybe.
Who had his hand up? I saw it.
Go on. Go on.
Unbelievable.
Oh, sorry, Lou. Go on.
No, I shall keep my answer to myself on this one.
So you get first dibs on the last question. This is that's
great.
the make or break one, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
there's a lot of comic genius you can get out of this. So characters outside the BMP can only be encoded in UTF-16 using 2 16-bit code units, because that's the surrogate pair. This is called a surrogate pair. It still represents a single character. Yes. So the last question, and Lewis has
Can
dibs
I
on
still
this.
mathematically win?
I
or
don't
draw?
know. I don't know who's actually winning. I want to say Fraser's winning.
I think he's got 2 and I think I've got half.
And I
Can we make the last one worth 1.5?
Well, it's up to you. Look, what do pack and unpack functions in PHP do? Lewis.
Pack.
Pack
thinking.
and unpack.
I'm thinking pack will pack something, and
yeah.
in the contrast to that, unpack will unpack something.
Okay.
I
Any
see
more?
where you're going.
Bit more specific. Pack
Oh,
What,
right,
though?
sorry,
What would
yeah.
it pack, and then what would it unpack?
This is in contrast to encoding, obviously.
Sorry, Fraser, have you got like a quarter full bottle of wine on your windowsill?
No, that's whiskey.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
That makes it all better.
Could you keep talking about that for a little bit longer?
No.
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 Oh, I don't know then. I don't know. Unpack. So is it like unpacking an array or an object or some kind of encoding character sets or something like that?
On the right
Am I
track.
anywhere close?
On the right track, yeah.
Okay. I'll stick.
Okay. How about you, Fraser?
I would have hazarded a guess at kind of it would zip and unzip files.
Okay, that's in the encoding
Or
realm, and
compressing
then
or whatever, yeah.
Mickey B.
So I remember you talking about how things aren't actually encoded, they're just key value pairs. So I'm thinking something maybe to do with that. So maybe unpack is, I don't know, takes all the bits and then works out what the actual rendered character should be, something like that.
So in PHP, we don't deal with binary, really, do we? We don't deal with the underground, the actual
The low-level
implementation, the
stuff,
low-level
yeah.
stuff. Pack and unpack actually let you do that. So what they do is it actually is able to pack data into a binary string. So you're actually able to just specify saying, I want this to be an integer, an unsigned integer. I want this to be a character, a char, an unsigned char, and able to pack things into a string to send out, or store into a file.
Okay.
So what, and then unpack similarly is able. So the reverse of that, is from a binary string into an array according to a format that you specify. So in one of my last blog posts I did, I've got been able to show the binary representation of a string, and what I'm able to do is unpack and say every char, so every 8 bits makes the byte, and I'm able to get that representation out of a PHP string. So it's really powerful with network stuff and everything to be able to do that. Sphinx and stuff uses it. I remember we were looking at the PHP scripts, the PHP library for that, because you could use it, or you could use the C version, but if you use the PHP version, it uses stuff like this to be able to actually go on quite low level on it. But yes, so I'm going to give Lewis a point for looking like he's upstairs, like he's just like champion. He's like, yes, I'm the champion.
Thank you.
Champion!
Boom.
I think Fraser won.
No, I think, does that mean, if Lewis won that one, isn't that 2-2? Because Lewis got the first question.
I don't think anyone got the... Well, actually, I think Lou should get a point for that one.
No, I can't claim points for any of this.
I'll take a point for it if it's.
I don't.
If
I don't
it's
get my point.
Oh dear! But that's me. My rant over.
Boom.
Well, you've done a great job as always, Ed man. It's
Do you feel
informative.
better now?
I think my Unicode, my ASCII, all that. It's kind of. Oh dear.
You know what you guys were saying last week, that Ed was fairly inebriated at your party, Mike.
Yeah.
About 5 or 6 points in, Ed started to try and explain this stuff to me, and didn't you? Do you remember?
I did indeed. Oh dear.
You lost track of what you were saying yourself at the time. It was funny. I do remember.
I do like drunk Ed.
Oh, I don't like him. He's not a funny guy.
I've seen more of him than sober Ed recently.
Oh dear, that makes me look really bad. Oh dear.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I've been there and at the same level. Don't worry.
Yeah. And if anybody else
and Fraser.
something we mentioned last week as well, if anybody else would like to see Drunk Ed, let us know if you're interested in a meetup. And if we've got enough people interested, we'll sort something out. Just like an informal kind of get together in a pub, like.
I hope it wouldn't be formal because then I'm drunk. But even better.
Yeah, we'll just get together and
talk.
We'll hire if we get enough people. I don't know how we'll get enough people to hire a room, but if we get enough people, we'll see if we can hire a room.
Us in a corner.
And just stand around, get drunk, and talk web dev with anyone.
And Unicode.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Nice. Cool.
I think
Is that us all wrapped up on Unicode?
I think so.
Yeah, I think I've completely exhausted that topic. So
Thanks, man. You did a great job. It was interesting. It was good.
I find things that are interesting that really aren't interesting, don't I? I have a feeling like I'm going for it and I'm like, you should be pumped. It's like, no, this is not actually that interesting. I'm like, what am I doing? Oh dear. Binary representation. The way it does the way UDF does, UTF-8 does its encoding so clever. But yeah, sorry. Oh dear.
If you could edit out the bit where you ask us how many bits are in there, whatever, because it made us look really stupid, that'd be great.
Sort of like 8 bits a byte. Oh.
And also probably the Rolf Harris stuff.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought that was educational and appropriate. So
And
it's
we
fine.
haven't actually said bye, so technically all this is in as well. So see you later, listeners.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.